Well, I know you probably haven't seen this, you guys, but this is called the gap diagram.
Oh no.
Available on our website. It's a free download. But anyway, this is home. Let's just not forget that we are one in the mind of God, pure spirit. There's no bodies. There's no matter. All is just spirit, and all activity and all of life is just God, right? So there are no private minds. There are no bodies. There is no mythical me. But this insane idea of a mind saying, I wonder what it would be like to become separate from God, and another mind agreeing, that sounded like a good idea, gave rise again to the mind fell asleep. Part of the mind fell asleep. And this is the contents of the dream. So it's never become true, but it's the contents of a sleeping mind. And in it, we've got the time-space continuum. In that, bodies seem to arise. The ego had the conundrum, well, if God is mind, well, how am I going to do a substitute? So it came up with this idea of a brain. The brain is in the skull of the body. And then this body gave life to many, many layers of a story and a personhood and its history, and we're off to the races, right? But let us not forget, this is happening in a sleeping mind. Our role is to awaken to this. Come back to mind, which is what we are.
Beautiful.
Okay? Unlimited, yeah.
Beautiful.
All right.
Thank you. Thanks, sis. I know we've said it a few times, but it's, in the illusion of linear time, it's taken us probably millions of years in the illusion of time to convince ourselves that we are a body and not spirit, right? Mm-hmm. Now, hopefully it's not going to take millions of years to unlearn that.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay.
No, we're doing this together, and that's the speed up.
Thank you.
Okay, and so remember, sickness is a biggie in the gap to keep the story of mythical me going. All right, so let's have a look and let's listen to what Jesus has to say about how we use this belief in sickness.
Yeah.
No one can heal unless he understands what purpose sickness seems to serve. For then he understands as well its purpose has no meaning. Being causeless and without a meaningful intent of any kind, it cannot be at all.
Is he saying sickness cannot be at all?
That's right. So coming back to that first sentence, no one can heal unless he understands what purpose sickness seems to serve. Sickness seems to serve this idea that we're a body. Okay, I'm a body and I'm sick. And the sickness proves that I am the body, right? Okay, that's what it serves. Now he says, for then he understands as well, its purpose has no meaning. So the purpose has no meaning because in truth, wow, the whole room lit up. It has no purpose and no meaning because in truth, we are one, right? So sickness, it's meaningless because what it's trying to enhance is an illusion. It hasn't done anything. So that's why he's saying being causeless and without a meaningful intent of any kind, it cannot be at all. So if this first premise is an illusion and sickness is simply something that the ego's tried to lap on top of an illusion, it's all meaningless because it's not happening here in the truth. Okay.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
When this is really seen, included really, healing is automatic. It, seeing this, dispels this meaningless illusion by the same approach which carries all of them to truth and merely leaves them there to disappear. What's that same approach?
So, okay, when this is seen, healing is automatic.
Yes.
It dispels this meaningless illusion by the same approach that carries all of them to truth and merely leaves them to disappear. At this point, you and I both, sis, have had numerous experiences or examples of this in our life in our body, right? Haven't we?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, good.
So it's not a metaphor. We're here to promise you that we're not having you bark up the wrong tree. It is literal. And when the mind understands these metaphysics and has a flash of, aha, I get it. This cannot be. There is no cause to sickness. When you get that, the body harmonizes. It's like this flash of truth and love bathe the mind, and it's no longer in the illusion, and it's not projecting fear and guilt, and the body harmonizes. And it does not matter, because there's no hierarchy of illusions. It does not matter what that illusion or the name of the sickness calls itself. A splinter or Alzheimer's. It's the same thing. They're both projections from the mind.
Right. Thank you for that. That's great. And just a reminder for me that was very, very helpful is that sickness has no cause.
That's right.
Okay, can we talk about that a little bit? Because most of us have been educated since birth that the body is a cause in itself. You know, it is autonomous from the mind, and that sickness has a cause. Sickness is a cause in itself, right?
Yes.
Can we talk a little bit about that, just to give that foundation? Is that the only cause is God, right?
Right.
Is love, and does the ego have a cause?
No,
I mean, it doesn't have a cause. Right, because it's not God's reality and it has no cause. A question I want to ask then is, how can it possibly have an effect? As take sickness, for example. Do you mind to talk about that?
Sure. Okay. Well, so just backing up just a little bit, this thought that we had left God created fear and guilt, right? We needed a substitute for the mind of God. If we want to get out of the mind of God, we can't, of course, but we seem to fall asleep. And the dream uses an ego thought system as its substitute for God. Again, it's only happening in a dream, and it's pure illusion. And the ego thought system is comprised of the fear and the guilt that we felt upon actually believing I've separated from God, I've obliterated the sonship, I'm guilty, and now I'm expecting punishment and attack, and I'm living in a state of fear. And all of that is projected out of the mind into the world. And one of the ways in which guilt is projected out, it's projected onto the body. It's projected into forms of attack in the form of like COVID or allergies or the belief in heredity or accidents, right? All these things happening to this body that seem to be an outside cause or a cause that we have no control over, right? So we've given cause to something else other than God. But coming back and recognizing that in God, where all is God, God is all powerful, and God is the only activity, the only effect can be the one that's derived from God being the only cause. Love and its effects, truth and its effects, Father and its effect, the Son in his image and likeness. That's the only thing that's going on. But the ego has tried in vain to make itself a cause and subject the mythical me to all sorts of forms of projections, right? Self-attack.
Good, thank you, sis. Yeah. And it would take two or more minds to agree that sickness is real for it to have any kind of illusory foothold in our experience. Is that true?
That's true. Because, in the absolute, when we share something, that's creation. In the ego thought system, when two sleeping minds agree to something, we're making. And that's how we seem to agree to things here in the world. We've talked about this void, the darkness, that it's illogical, it's chaos, it makes no sense, it's not in God, there's no light in it, there's no truth in it. But we're all in here gawking in the dark, agreeing with each other that, this is a body and we're separate, and that's a car, and this is my job, and that's my family, and this is my home, right? None of it makes sense. It's all based on the premise of separation. And again, remembering reality is wholeness, it's union. So anything that stands for separation cannot be the truth.
That gives me so much peace.
Doesn't it? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's look at this. He says sickness. Sickness is not an accident.
Mm-hmm.
It's not random.
You sure? Who said that?
Victim. Yep.
Is Jesus saying that?
It's all true or none of it's true. Sickness is not an accident.
Wow.
Like all defenses, it is an insane device for self-deception. And like all the rest, everything else in the gap, sickness's purpose is to hide reality, to attack it, change it, render it inept, distort it, twist it, and reduce it to a little pile of disassembled parts. So the wholeness, what we've attempted to do through an ego thought system, is to disassemble the wholeness of which we are of union into disassembled parts, private bodies, private minds. The aim of all defenses is to keep the truth from being whole. The parts are seen as if each one were whole within itself. There's mythical me right there. I am a kingdom unto myself. I have a mind. I have autonomy. I'm independent. I can do apart from God. I can think thoughts apart from God. And to prove that I'm separate, I can be sick. You're not sick. I'm sick. We're different. Something's happened to me, right? Okay. Defenses are not unintentional, nor are they made without awareness. They are secret magic wands you wave when truth appears to threaten what you would believe. They seem to be unconscious, but because of the rapidity with which you choose to, they seem to be unconscious, but because of the rapidity with which you choose to use them. In that second, even less, in which the choice is made, you recognize exactly what you would attempt to do and then proceed to think that it is done.
So, sis, this is a part that for many years when I began the course, I didn't understand what the threat was and what would I be defending myself from through sickness? Yeah, I just didn't understand that. So can we just unpack that here?
Sure. So if what we are is one and what we are is love, that love of our true nature is so powerful and so strong that it's constantly calling to us. Remember, our mind is split. So part of us, when the mind seemed to fall asleep, God's answer was the Holy Spirit. And the Holy Spirit is the voice for God. And where is it? In your mind. But the other part of your mind is sleeping, trying to have this experience that's 180 degrees opposite of what the Holy Spirit is voicing to us. And so we've got to actively engage in constant distraction and defenses, meaning drama-filled, emotional-laden stories to keep our mind busy and into that gap so that we're not still and at peace. Because what would happen if we let go of our stories and actually became quiet? We might actually hear that voice for Holy Spirit. And when you hear the voice for Holy Spirit, and we all have at one point or another, you know that the result is a sense of peace and joy, happiness, an abiding love. You remember yourself, your holy self. And should you actually fully remember what you are, or you begin to hear the voice for God, it would pull you so strongly. That memory would just call you and you would leap back into the arms of God. What would happen to your mythical me when that occurs? That's annihilation to mythical me. It's a glad annihilation because you're running back to the arms of God because you remembered home and mythical me has no value. But while you still think that mythical me or a sense of separation holds something out for you that you want, if you're having a good life and you like your title at the office and your fat bank account and your perfect home, well, love is going to be very, very threatening. And you want defenses against it. You don't want to truly join with a brother, because in that holy instant of joining, there's love. Oh no, right? So we create shields all around us against divine love, true communication, authentic communication, and the holy instant. We don't want to join with anybody. We want our masks, and we just keep our glass house up and protected.
It's really, really well said. Thank you. I think that's the key right there, you know. Now, significant defense, of course, the first line of defense is the fear of union, right? Which is the fear of love.
Yes.
It's the fear of actually showing up and being completely authentic, which involves being emotionally vulnerable. It involves being radically self-honest.
Yes.
It also involves, and I think this is a huge defense that the ego has against this, it involves recognizing that we are accountable for every ego thought that we have and every projection that we have.
That's it.
So, you know, that's a huge threat to the ego thought system, isn't it?
Yeah, oh, definitely. Right. I would much rather have everybody believe that I'm a victim and that something like a disease has happened to me, and I welcome the sympathy that I'm going to receive, right? The ego just sucks it up. It's like, yes, yes, yes. It does not want us to realize, wait a second, I'm using sickness. I've called this to me. I'm accountable for everything that happens to me. I'm not a victim. And why am I using this? To bolster the first lie that I am this body, right? And what's that for? To prove that I have left God and I'm separate from you.
Right, right.
So the sickness is just smoke and mirrors.